Hey everybody, welcome back to Franciscan Fridays at the Shrine. I'm Father Luke Mary Fletcher.
And I'm Brother Pius Gange.
Brother Pius, welcome back.
Thanks, good to be back.
So what are we going to talk about this time? I know, but go ahead.
Well, I think we received a request to talk a little bit about how our emotional life and our life experiences affect us sort of on our trajectory of following the Lord. And when I saw that, and I saw that it was the month of July, here at the Shrine, we sort of, we're on retainer to have to constantly mention Fatima.
Yes.
And so I was looking back at the July apparitions of Our Lady and what she said to the children, especially to Lucia, and I thought that would all tie in very, very well to kind of explore these dynamics.
Excellent. So we're here at the Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima here in New Jersey, the Blue Army Shrine. We kind of follow the Fatima, I call it the Fatima season.
Yeah.
So May 13th, June 13th, July 13th, which is just a few days from now, and all the way to October 13th, we call the Fatima Days. And it's beautiful, being chaplains here, we often have a chance to revisit the story of what happened on each one of those days. And in our discussions earlier, we felt that some of the details from the July 13th apparition, again, this is 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, kind of has a little timely, beautiful message for us. So go ahead, remind us what happened in that particular apparition.
Sure. So in that apparition, it starts kind of like the other apparitions do, where Our Lady is there, she speaks to Lucia, and Lucia comes and she's got a bunch of people she's praying for. So she names a list of people.
Right. So the word had gotten out, and so
right.
the little three shepherd children have been inundated with people requesting all sorts of.
Yes, as you can imagine. It kind of reminds me of when Father Benedict and Father Andrew were alive, and we would go to an event, right, and everybody and their grandma was trying to get Father Benedict to pray for something, like, oh, don't forget, please pray for the, And so this was happening to the children. And so Lucia starts going through the list of these people. And there's one woman who Our Lady says will be healed, and another person she says won't be healed. There's a man who's very ill and very poor, and she says that stuff's not going to get better for him, and he needs to pray the Rosary every day, which is kind of mysterious, And then it's sort of, there's a lot of controversial stuff that happened in this apparition. So after this, the children are there, and Our Lady tells them that they need to pray the Rosary every day for peace, because there's going to be a second war that's going to come if they don't pray every day and hearts aren't converted.
Right. So World War I is happening at this time.
Correct.
Our Lady's now prophesying a second worse war, which at this point we know was World War II.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So that happens, and pretty much right after that, the children have a vision of hell, and it's terrible. I mean, you can look up the details on the internet, but they're seeing souls suffering, they're seeing demons, weird hybrid animals, kind of like the hybrid dinosaurs in the new Jurassic Park movie,
Exactly. Yeah.
And just terrible suffering. And Our Lady says you've seen a vision of hell where poor sinners go because they have no one to pray for them. So that's an interesting piece of the message. And then the third secret is revealed, which is super controversial, where the children see a bishop dressed in white, which they understand to be the Holy Father. He's suffering, he's assassinated. There are souls of priests, religious, lay people who are all being martyred, and there are angels picking up, catching the blood in these sort of chalices, and angels swinging a sword over its head saying, penance, penance, penance. And then Our Lady says, perhaps the most consoling thing, all this stuff's going to happen, but in the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. And incredibly, incredibly mysterious stuff there. Very frightening. Like I think, as a therapist, I work with kids, and like it would be extremely traumatizing for a child to see hell. I remember watching scary movies as a kid, right, and, not being able to sleep for a week because, I was afraid of whoever in the movie was going to get me in my dreams, So it's fascinating that Our Lady reveals this to the children, but you can imagine it's after this point, the children who were already doing really remarkable amounts of penance for kids, like ramped up their penances for poor sinners, this charity for other souls.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there. Just as a side note, I often get questions from people about the Fatima Secret, third part of the Fatima Secret. So just to note that John Paul II did publish it in the year 2000. It's available in any language on the Vatican website, vatican.va. At the time, Cardinal Ratzinger, who goes on to become Pope Benedict XVI, even did a commentary on it. Sister Lucia herself confirmed that, yes, this is the full secret, has been published. Okay. And so, but maybe let's circle back around to the idea that some people will get healed and some people won't.
Yeah.
And how that may kind of track with our own experiences, things that we go through, whether we're being tempted to think maybe God isn't hearing me or God isn't doing what I want him to do, or the terrible things that people go through. And then there's this struggle like, God, why did you allow that?
Yeah.
And how that somehow affects like a lot of emotional struggles and difficulties.
For sure. So it's worth saying that what we go through forms us as people. Right. There's a whole field of neuroscience and psychology called interpersonal neurobiology. It's a fancy word, but it basically, the general idea is that we are formed and we grow and our personality develops in and through our relationships and our experiences with other people. Right? Which tracks with what we know about being made in God's image and likeness. God, who is a communion of persons, as we talked about in our Trinity episode, which you can go back to if you want. But so that reality is happening. And for whatever reason, God in his providence, right? Like the big picture is that freedom is the kind of prerequisite. Without freedom, there's not the possibility of real love.
Right.
And so in a fallen world, and I think that like every day, it may be helpful after we say like our morning offering to pinch ourselves and say, I live in a fallen world.
Right.
Like to just be mindful, it's a fallen world, which means things aren't as they were supposed to be.
Right.
Which means there are all of these experiences, big and small, in our lives that remind us that we're not home yet. And there are experiences that we go through that sort of shape us, positive experiences and negative experiences. The sufferings that we don't choose, whether it's illness, whether it's things like a really severe depression that like even medication and good therapy and all this stuff, it just doesn't feel like it ever really lifts. Anxiety, so many people, and there's like an epidemic of anxiety these days where people are literally just trying to go through their lives and they're just constantly bombarded with physical sensations of fear and distress, and not to mention all the ways that we can hurt each other.
Right.
And in the midst of all of that, God doesn't leave us alone. I like to think of the book of Job. It's a book I've gone back to a lot.
Sure.
And the sort of the premise for those of you who may not have cracked open that section of your Bible is Job is a righteous man. He's blessed with all sorts of material blessings, and the devil comes before the face of God, and the Lord says to the devil, check out my servant Job. Like, he's a righteous man. He's wonderful. And the devil says, oh yeah, take away his stuff and he'll curse you to your face.
Right.
And God allows the devil to decimate everything Job has. And Job still doesn't curse God. So then the devil says, oh yeah, okay, you took away his stuff, but let him get really sick. And then let's see what happens, right? And Job still remains faithful. And then Job's friends, quote unquote, initially come to console him. And then there's this whole dialogue back and forth where Job keeps insisting, like, I really didn't do anything wrong. And Job's friends are like, because this is like the traditional kind of classic understanding at the time was like, if you sin, bad stuff happens to you. If you're good, good stuff happens to you.
Right.
It's a very simplistic understanding, but they come back and forth with Job, and Job insists like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. And finally, at the end of the book, God comes to Job. And the thing is, like, God's answers to Job don't feel very consoling. Basically, God says to Job, like, were you there when I laid the foundation of the ocean? Do you know where the sun rests and how to get it up again? Did you, tame and play with Leviathan, right? Like, which doesn't feel like a very consoling answer.
Right.
On the face of it.
Sure.
But one of the things that after years of kind of sitting with this, that I took away is that Job is consoled because God is present with Job. God comes and brings his presence into Job's suffering. God's answer to Job's questions is not to offer rational answers as to why this is happening or whatever, right? His answer is his presence. I mean, at the end of the book, because it was speaking to the mind of the Jewish people, I think Job is restored, many times over to where he was before. And John Paul II, in his beautiful, beautiful encyclical on human suffering, Salvifici Doloris, he says that the ultimate answer comes when Jesus dies on the cross. And in the act of redemption, Jesus gathers to himself all of the suffering from the beginning of time until the end of the world, gathers it up into himself, brings his presence there in the deepest darkness that human beings can experience, and rises from the dead to redeem it all. And I think that is a key to understand the dynamic of what's happening in Our Lady saying that some people are healed and some people aren't.
Oh, wow. There is a lot there. Myself as well, having wrestled with that topic, I had a class on the theology of the cross, and we kind of tracked the entire biblical, you can do Bible studies where you do like the theme of good and evil and suffering from, the book of Genesis all the way through. The book of Job is a significant moment in that trajectory, which ultimately lands on the death and resurrection of Jesus. Every aspect of Jesus's life and what he said and what he did is God's answer to the question of suffering. Yeah. Obviously, what's been revealed, that anything we suffer for love of God here will be somehow rewarded in heaven in eternity, where there will be no suffering, there will be no illness, there'll be the fullness of healing. So there's moments by which the biblical understanding is growing and deepening and developing. And yet, even with all of that, there's still mystery there. Yeah. And it's almost as if the Lord is saying to us, well, just trust me, an all good, all powerful, all loving God. Yeah. And then we come back to the example of the children at Fatima, being visionaries. Like, it really cost them. Like, they suffered a lot. Yeah. Mary had asked, would you be willing to accept and offer up the sufferings that will come your way? And even the spirituality of just abandoning to divine providence, trusting the Lord, making of everything a sacrifice. Yeah. Anything we go through, even if it's unjust, or even like, for example, we had those floods in Texas recently, which is not really a moral evil, but there's some sort of, accidents, or, people become victims of inclement weather, whether it be tornadoes or floods or earthquakes or tsunamis, and that mystery of imperfection and suffering and difficulty. Kind of praying over that, I had an idea, certainly theology, prayer, spirituality, things that the children of Fatima, like even how they lived, becomes part of the Fatima message. Yeah. beautiful spirituality of prayer and sacrifice and suffering. I also was thinking of Lord of the Rings. So, I always try to get that in there. And obviously this is literature, but there's a moment where one of the characters, Gandalf, is speaking, I believe, with Frodo, and they're just talking. Frodo's saying something about him in the middle of this huge, epic kind of battle between good and evil. And I really wish I wasn't. I wish I was like home safe in my comfortable Shire. And if my memory of the book, which I think it did make it into the movies as well, Gandalf has this line about, well, everybody who's in difficult times wishes they weren't, but it's not ours to choose, when we live. And then also an idea that none of us see the furthest end or concluding of the unfolding of events, and how we may have wished something could have been different. And then, so there's this, we're in the face of mystery. We're in the face of our contingency as humans, that we're not in control. Yeah. We don't know the future. We don't have full control over everything. We can't stop every evil from happening, but we do have an all good, all loving, all merciful, powerful God who we can trust. Yeah. And in the face of things that we face, even though there's never 100% perfect healing in this life, we've been promised there will be in the next. Yeah. What Mary told St. Bernadette at Lourdes. Oh, yeah. I can't promise you the fullness of happiness in this life, but in the next.
That's right.
And something similar with the children of Fatima. The idea that in this life there will be suffering and imperfections. Yeah. Some people were getting healed, some people didn't. Yep. And even some of the family members of the visionaries continued to have struggles. I know Sister Lucia's nephew had a really bad car accident. I had lunch with him one day, and it ended up being a big conversion for him. And he was sharing with me that his auntie, Sister Lucia, who's elderly in the convent, had been praying for him, and so being a family member of a visionary didn't mean he was free from like accidents and suffering, and yet God's brought something good out of it. That's the hope. That's that God can bring good out of everything if we just trust Him. Yeah. Struggle to trust Him. Yep. Pray, hope. Try not to worry. That's right. Thank you, Padre Pio. That's right. That's right. So, your closing thoughts, bro. Bring us home.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That last piece that you said, Father. I think what we're not saying. Let me be clear.
Clarify.
What we're not saying is that suffering is a good thing.
Right.
Suffering is evil. It's not good. We're not looking for trouble. Right. A prayer you probably don't want to pray, talk to your spiritual director, is, Lord, give me more suffering. Right. Not a good idea, right? But as St. Augustine put it so beautifully, God is so good. He shows His goodness is so overwhelmingly good that it can even transform the most evil things. And the most evil thing that ever happened on the planet was the death of Jesus. Right. Totally innocent God. He can turn that for good. And so I think that the heart of our encouragement here is, no matter where you are, no matter what you're suffering, offer and surrender. Everything depends on you, to give to God and say, Lord, okay, your kingdom come, your will be done. That beautiful prayer of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Father, not my will, but yours be done. But also pray. Take advantage of the means that we have, both spiritual, there's something called spiritual bypass, which we might be able to cover at another point, where we kind of over spiritualize. We're okay, I'm just going to pray 20 rosaries a day and my cancer will go away or my illness will go away. Well, God also gave us doctors and medicine and the thing, so take advantage of what you can take advantage of. Trust me, as a frequenter of the medical profession, you will suffer plenty if you let doctors take care of you. But take advantage of those means. Pray as best you can. But the things that seem to be sticking points in your life, difficulties that you're dealing with, we try to do our best to offer them with love, knowing that we have a good Father who can turn whatever's difficult, evil, a trial in our life for our good. And those things ultimately will make us saints. One example I like to think of is Saint Therese. Saint Therese had all these amazing aspirations. She told Jesus she wanted to be every possible thing she could be in the heart of the church. And one of her desires was actually to go be a missionary, to go start a convent in I think it was Vietnam. And she died. You know, or you think of like Aloysius Gonzaga, who wanted to be a priest. He died of the plague before he could be ordained. Like, were they not faithful in following God's will? Of course they were. But it's the offering of those circumstances of their life over which they had no control that somehow added to their sanctification. And we can offer to God these big and little heartbreaks and be transformed.
Beautiful. Thanks, bro. I think of the children of Fatima, especially Jacinta Francisco, are saints, but they were not canonized because they were visionaries.
Right.
They were canonized because they lived heroic virtue, which is kind of ended up being evidence that the authenticity of what happened to them. And that's available to all of us.
Yeah.
Little things done with great love, trusting in the Lord and holding on in the storm.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening, everyone. Well, God bless you. Please like, subscribe. If you would, make a donation to Our Lady's Shrine. And we'll see you next Friday. God bless.
God bless.